Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the What the Fantasy Football Show. We have a lot of things in store for you tonight, but first, I have to let you know that we're a part of the Full Time Fantasy Podcast Network, growing each and every day. Just added a couple of new podcasts. Make sure to check them all out over at fulltimefantasy.com. But first, I have to bring on the guy that just makes it all happen, does everything, keeps everything, just is everything, and that's Mr. Tony Cincotta.
All right, we're all fired up today. We're getting ready. Of course, the first bye week happened in the NFL this week. And I got to tell you, we got a guy who I guess is coming back. And I got emails today about trades involving Melvin Gordon and the San Diego Chargers. Some guys trading him, some guys receiving him, and people asking my opinion. And maybe I'm a little different than most. I can tell people, don't get too carried away with Melvin Gordon. I think if you expect the first round Melvin Gordon, I want to see it before it happens. Austin Eckler is a guy that played pretty well. I think he's going to at least split time with Melvin Gordon for a couple of weeks. And if you're going to trade first round value, I think you're going to see 2 or 3 weeks before we see that running back situation actually carry itself out in San Diego. And Melvin Gordon can wrest that job full-time back from Austin Eckler. I think you're getting 50-50 timeshare at least for a couple of weeks. Jim, how do you see it?
I agree with you, Tony. Look, there's a lot of things that could happen here. First of all, like you said, Eckler has been playing outstanding. No doubt about it. They're getting everything they could want from him. Fact of the matter is, we don't know how much Gordon is in shape. Is he ready to start the season now, or does he need a couple of weeks, like you're saying, to even get ready? We just don't know at this point. Plus, there's other things that come involved. Do they make it a 50-50 time split between the two of them? It's very possible. We'll have to see, but it's definitely very possible. The other thing, the other side of the coin is that he could easily end up with a soft tissue injury after being out for so long. Not being on the field, not practicing, not playing, trying to come back too fast and get on the field too fast. He could end up hurting himself, and he end up losing more time. So I'm with you, Tony. Don't sell a farm to get Gordon at this point. And if you have Eckler and you didn't move him by now, then you're pretty much stuck with him, because I don't know if anybody's going to actually trade for him at this point.
Yeah, and you know what? Being stuck with Eckler at this point, I don't think it's a bad thing. Yeah, he had a couple nice weeks where you get 20 fantasy points, but I think you've seen a guy with double-digit fantasy point value with Melvin Gordon. And you look at the San Diego Chargers. They're the cheap organization. They're never going to pay this guy. So do they want to see what Eckler has going forward, or they use Gordon and put him in the ground? These are things that need to play out, Mike. How do you see it?
Of course, he freaking comes back when the Dolphins game is lining up perfectly for Eckler. That's one. So as an Eckler owner in a couple of leagues, I'm a little bummed that he's coming back at this time. But I think you guys are driving at the point and the question that I would pose to both of you. Given all of the facts that you just laid out, you just talked about, and Tony, I agree with you. It's not a bad thing at all. Would you rather have Eckler the rest of the way due to risk of injury, due to us not knowing exactly what Gordon's role is going to be? I don't see a way, even weeks from now, where he's just the workhorse back again and Eckler's filling in the way he did in previous seasons. I think he's shown too much. I think he's shown to be really valuable for the Chargers. So I think you can make an argument that you'd rather have Eckler because Gordon could get hurt, he could get traded, he could, quote unquote, pull a hammy and just be on IR the rest of the year because he doesn't really want to play.
Now, here's the thing. I think I got the emails from the wrong people today. I actually should have got the emails from the people looking to get Austin Eckler for a little cheaper now with the news Gordon coming back. I think you could go that way. The only negative I have on the Eckler situation, a big negative, is that, Jim, I believe that when Melvin Gordon comes back, Melvin Gordon would be the goal line back. So you're going to lose those touchdown carries from Eckler.
Yeah, and you may lose a little more than that. Let's face it. I don't think they're going to have any luck in trying to trade him at this point. They had the chance. Nobody wanted to buy him. Nobody's going to pay, a draft pick or two and then have to pay a big contract on top of that to Gordon with his injury history, with, the knee issues, things like that. It's just not going to happen. So I don't think they trade him. I think they keep him. The only downside is to seeing what they have in Eckler is that Eckler is a free agent at the end of the year. So, both of these guys could be on the way out. It's going to be interesting to see what they do, but, it may very well be that they just run Gordon into the ground because they know they're not going to keep him next year.
So you're saying trade for Justin Jackson in Dynasty?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I would, but I still wouldn't pay a ton for him. Justin Jackson is a good back. I just don't think he's an elite back.
You know what's crazy is before this Melvin Gordon situation came out, I seen Jackson on a lot of waiver wires this week, and I was actually putting dollar bids in on him because he's getting the playing time, and I didn't think he should be on waiver wires. Most of the leagues I play are 14 or 17 team leagues. So I was going to go put a bid on him, but the Melvin Gordon dampens my enthusiasm from this year. But it's an interesting call as far as dynasty leagues. If San Diego all of a sudden or LA actually let both backs go.
Tony, one thing I would say on Eckler, I think you're right that it hurts his red zone. But the good news is even when Melvin Gordon was playing in years past, Eckler's red zone usage was pretty good for a guy who's considered to be the secondary back.
Didn't he cough one up last game, or was the game before he coughed one up?
Yeah, in week 2 he lost a fumble. Yeah,
that was my only concern. We've seen a couple guys. Chris Carson killed me in a league by coughing it up, but Seattle seems to think that they'll go back to Chris Carson. We got one more running back situation, and it is fantasy football. So everybody's in need of running backs, and it's a team on a bye this week. Matt Breida, of course, in San Francisco, is the guy. And then we've seen Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. get the opportunity to come in and make things happen. But the talk is Tevin Coleman will be back in week 5, and Jeff Wilson might be inactive. Jim, how do you see this 49ers backfield playing out?
I think it's going to be a committee, a full-fledged committee between all these backs. They can all do things here and there. Jeff Wilson definitely takes the back seat, and that's good because he was the one stealing all the goal line carries. I'd be glad to get rid of him. Let's see what happens. Who ends up getting it going forward? My thought is it's going to be Breida with Wilson out of there. So I'm hoping that's the case. I have Breida in a lot of places. I'm not a huge Tevin Coleman fan, but Kyle Shanahan likes him. That's why he brought him over. So it's going to be real interesting to see how this plays out. I would have to imagine that Mostert would be the one with the shorter share of the three, but I do think all three are going to be on the field each week.
Of all three on the field, Mike, does this hurt the fantasy value from the San Francisco running backs, at which Kyle Shanahan's a running back dude, but now we can't. We got too many guys in the hat.
Yeah, it's really the same conversation that we were having over the summer. We liked Breida at his value and based on what the Niners have historically said about him. But in practical usage in games, you see it's very split as far as usage is concerned. So I don't think Shanahan gives a damn about any of us. Yeah, so right. I think he'll continue to not give a damn about any of us. And they have a good thing going. They're 3-0. Jeff Wilson, Mostert, no Coleman, Breida in, Breida out, doesn't matter. They're in a good spot right now, and I think they'll keep doing it the way that Shanahan wants to do it, which is split the carries.
Crazy. I've actually held on to Tevin Coleman in my leagues. It was a little tougher this week with some bye situations, some injuries, but I don't know. I'm going to stick it out one more week and see what happens on the San Francisco backfield. Of course, with them off this week, we'll see them in week 5. I'll tell you what, the New England Patriots are 3-0. They've had some craziness, but I've got a million fantasy questions involving them. Julian Edelman was back at practice today, so he's looking like a go against the Buffalo Bills this week. But the New England Patriots backfield lost James Devlin, which means nothing to fantasy owners, but it does. Jim, we saw the Patriots turn to a power running game at the end of last season. Sonny Michel was a thing. You were down on Michel coming in the season. They just lost their fullback. This hurts the Patriots' power running game, I would think. And I think we're going back to the James White days.
Yeah, I definitely think we'll see a lot more White again. It does hurt Sonny Michel a lot. They like running that power football, and it's hard to do without a good, competent fullback. We'll see what happens. But, again, we haven't seen much of Michel to begin with anyway so far. I do think that changes as the season wears on. But at this point, it's really hard to trust any of these guys. We could see Burkhead having a bigger role as well. He played well last week. We know he's shown flashes in the past. Who knows at this point what's going to happen? Again, another situation that's terrible for fantasy. And you know what? Again, Bill, like you said, Kyle doesn't care. Bill don't care, even worse. And I think this is going to become the normal trend for a lot of teams. It works for Bill Belichick. He keeps winning rings. Well, maybe, he's a little smarter than the rest of us coaches. Maybe we should do what he's doing. It is a copycat league.
I played Rex Burkhead last week in DFS without James White there. I was a guy that liked Sony Michel coming into the season. I really think with the offensive line situations, the New England Patriots have had some injuries there. Losing Devlin, I am not as excited, Mike, on Sony Michel as I was 5 weeks ago.
I think that makes sense. They obviously called Jacob Johnson off the practice squad to fill in here. He's a rookie, or he's a practice squad guy that doesn't have really any experience playing this offense at all. Now, Devlin's neck injury isn't thought to be season-ending, so they're going to have to decide between Isaiah Wynn, James Devlin, and N'Keal Harry. And I would suggest that if everybody can come back, that I think Harry would be the odd man out.
Absolutely.
I think they would roll without a rookie wide receiver because Brady doesn't care about him, and roll with Devlin and Win in the running game. So you don't have to ditch him yet, but still, it's going to be a while before he can come back. And I think it's fair to not be as excited. I don't know how well a rookie fullback is going to do in this offense, but I still think, like last year, we saw Michel pick up steam as the season went on, Tony. So perhaps due to some of these injuries being shuffled around, he might be a guy you'd want for your fantasy playoffs.
Jim, Mike just said that Tom Brady don't care about rookie wide receivers. I thought that was Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, well, it is Ben. But, hey, Brady doesn't care about him because he's got the guys on the field right now that he wants. He's got Edelman, he's got Gordon, he's got Dorsett. Right now he doesn't need N'Keal Harry. If by the time N'Keal Harry is ready to come back, one of these guys is hurt, then that may change the whole dynamic.
Tony, all your Dorsett shares have come in flush now.
Yeah.
You were hammering Dorsett during the summer. Now you're in good shape.
I'll tell you what, and I was picking him up off the waiver wire as soon as Antonio Brown started acting a little crazier than he was before. So I even have more. Not only did I draft Dorsett, now I get him off the waiver wire for $2.
Amazing.
All right, I got a strategy question, and I'm going to tell you guys, this is crazy because I'm a guy that hates having two good quarterbacks on the team because I don't like to play this matchup. I like to have one guy and stick with him all year round. You can discuss whether that's bad or a good strategy. I get it, but I just feel better when I do that. But I'm tempted this week to go to the waiver wire and pick up a quarterback and bench Tom Brady against the Buffalo Bills defense, which is real. And I'm tempted to go to the waiver wire because I see Jacoby Brissett on a lot of waiver wires against an Atlanta Falcons defense, which I don't think is great. They lost their safety. Jim, would you ever sit Tom Brady this week and play Jacoby Brissett over Tom Brady?
Man, I don't think I could. It's enticing, no doubt. I mean, Brissett going at home against Oakland is a nice matchup. You got to like that. Oakland is 20th so far on the season against opposing quarterbacks. So that definitely gives Brissett a nice leap. And like you say, Buffalo is definitely very good. That game is going to be – it's crazy because across the board, both defenses are good. The only sore spot is Buffalo's running game. Buffalo against the running game. They're 16th against opposing running backs. But other than that, across the board for New England and then for other positions for Buffalo, they're all top 5 or better. So this, every time it looks like it's going to be a defensive struggle with this where we see two great defenses coming together, it always seems to go the other way. And, all of a sudden they're popping off big scores here and left and right here. And to me, it's just, I don't know if I could sit Brady for Brissett. I just don't. Brady's playing too good right now. This offense is moving the ball. I know they haven't really played anybody, having faced Miami and the Jets the last 2 weeks. But they did pretty good against the Pittsburgh defense in week 1. I just don't know if I can do that. I have gotten by the last 2 weeks starting Josh Allen over Aaron Rodgers. So, I could see the reasoning. Wow. I just don't know if I could do it.
What's your thoughts, Mike? Would you consider Jacoby Brissett this week over Tom Brady and the Buffalo Bills defense?
You literally talked yourself into the thing that you said you don't do. And debating it. Now, I wouldn't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. He's got He's aiming for his 5th game in a row for 250 passing yards and 2+ touchdowns and a 100 rating. He has 69 career passing touchdowns versus Buffalo, the most versus any opponent. They have historically slaughtered the Bills. I get that this is a different Bills team in terms of them being clearly undefeated, and this is a very good defense. I'm just still going to give Brady the edge over them. They have to. I'll believe that they can stop Tom Brady when they actually do it. So I think Brissett's a great matchup, but I would just roll with Tom.
Now here, just to add fire to it, based on Vegas numbers right now, they still have New England with an implied point total of almost 25 points for the game. So if they get 25 points, I have to imagine a good part of that's coming from Tom Brady.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
You don't think Bill's gonna confuse Josh Allen a little bit?
See, I think the Patriots win the game just because of that. I'm not impressed with the Buffalo offense. Devin Singletary hasn't practiced this week, so they're gonna go to it's gonna be on the quarterback to win this one, and I think it's gonna be tough. You know what's crazy though? We were killing the Bills in the preseason about what the moves they made in the offseason. I actually like the receiver group watching this team play. They're not great.
Been better than I said.
They're not great, but they're not bad. Cole Beasley's doing a great job. John Brown's getting down the field. And this Dix at tight end, I don't know where they got him. I think he used to be part of those fishing.
Knox.
Yeah, Knox. Dix. Knox. He reminds me of what's that show where the guys made the duck calls from Louisiana?
Duck something.
They had a reality show.
Duck Dynasty.
Oh, yeah, Duck Dynasty. Yeah, he reminded. I think he came from them guys. I think he was an illegitimate child of one of those guys, and he just comes on the football field. I mean, this is a fun team to watch. I haven't said that about the Buffalo Bills in a long time.
No, and Josh Allen's actually playing pretty well. He's throwing the ball well, with something he really didn't do last year, but he's throwing the ball a lot better this year. The receivers are stepping up, like you said. Knox was actually early in spring practices. Knox was killing it. Every day, beat writers were talking about this kid is unstoppable. Nobody can cover him. And then he got hurt. He had the soft tissue injury, missed all of preseason, all of training camp. And now he's just finally starting to get healthy. And they've been looking for a tight end. They had brought over Tyler Kroft, but he's been hurt for the entire time, basically, that they've had him. So this kid, don't be surprised if this kid starts making some noise on a weekly basis.
By the way, Tony, there's 3-0 teams that got really lucky with the scheduling. And if you start looking at the Bills' schedule now, through the first 3 games, you can poke a lot of holes in it. They beat the Jets by a point. They had a dogfight with Cincinnati for some reason. So I'm not.
And they beat the Giants.
Those are 3 of the worst teams, and possibly, with the exception of Miami, the 3 worst teams in the entire league. Certainly the Jets are now at full strength. They'll be better, but the Giants had a lead on them. They had to come back to beat Cincinnati, and the Jets game was a dogfight that they miraculously came back in. So I'm not going to get too fired up about them, but to your point, this receiving core has looked better than anticipated.
I agree with everything you just said. And here's the crazy part about football is that everything you said is right, but I'll ask both of you guys. The Buffalo Bills, are they a playoff team? My answer is yes. If you go back and you look at the 6 best teams in the AFC, somehow they're in it.
They are. I thought they were going to be knocking on the door, though. I couldn't figure out if it was going to be them or the Jets. It's clearly them, but I don't think that's by any stretch of the imagination. It's not a reach at all. They have a very good defense, and if they play offense the way that they're playing it, they'll win a whole bunch of games. I just don't think they're going to beat New England. They have Miami on the schedule twice. They have the Jets again when it might not mean anything. They have a tough stretch in there where they got to play at Dallas. They got to play Baltimore. They got to play at Cleveland, and they're going to have another game against New England. So there's a bunch of losses there, and we don't know what the Eagles are. Washington's on their schedule, so it's another easy one.
But anytime you have that good a defense, a game can change on a dime.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, look at it. Just go back to last year when the offense wasn't playing very good, especially at the beginning of the year. They looked like total crap. They go into Minnesota, who was red hot at the time, and totally destroy Minnesota. So, I mean, it's hard to just brush them off either. When you have that good a defense, the defense can rule a game.
My last take on Buffalo. Allen, I'm not in love with yet. The one problem I have with him is, like a young quarterback, and he's been in the league a little bit now, uh, he takes off and runs too much. And he makes some big plays running the ball, and he's definitely agile to do it. But he's not looking for a second or third receiver. He's just taking off.
The good thing about it, though, the fact that he's taken off, he doesn't take a lot of big hits. Like a Deshaun Watson does when he runs. He takes a lot of brutal hits. Allen I haven't really seen him take too many of those really big hits, which is usually what you have to worry about with running quarterbacks. Once they get into that secondary, they're open game and anybody can take pot shots at him. But he tends to get down quick. He runs out of bounds when he needs to. I haven't really seen him take too many big hits.
I got to ask the question. You all tuned in to watch a thrilling Monday Night Football game, the Bears and the Redskins. Mitch Trubisky. Did he turn the corner? Did he turn the corner, Jim? Is this the Trubisky you were looking for?
No. As far as I'm concerned, no. I mean, he put up 3 touchdowns, all, of course, to Taylor Gabriel that every fantasy owner on the planet was starting, no doubt. But no, not at all. He still didn't look good at all. 2 of those touchdowns were fairly easy touchdowns, mistakes by the defense. I'm not buying into him yet. He's still making a ton of mistakes. Still too many of those balls going errant, and I'm just not in love with him. Plus, I think Matt Nagy is showing himself to be a fool. I really am. He's got David Montgomery there, the best back that they have on the team, and he's still not giving him enough work. Take the ball out of Trubisky's hands. Let the kid run for you. Let him build up a head of steam over the course of a full game, and I think you'll see wonders out of him. He's too cute for my liking at this point.
You know what? This is crazy that Jim brought this up. At first, I was not a Matt Nagy fan because I thought exactly what Jim said. Some coaches try to win games and others try to impress people on how they look and how the team plays and all these creative plays out there. And Matt Nagy struck me as one of those guys who wanted to impress everybody, like Mike Martz back in the day with the Rams when they had the things high flying, except he doesn't have the talent that the Rams had. And then, you know what? I kind of liked him by the end of the year, but this year, I agree with Jim. I think he's just trying to be too cute, trying to show people how smart he is, Mike.
I had the oddest reaction to this game while I was watching it. There's a couple of things. One is that Washington was so bad. It's amazing to think that the score was only 31-15. Like it finished 31-15. That's as close as that game could have possibly been, right? With the 5 turnovers. That was one thing. 2 is that I had this reaction on that second touchdown, which Jim said they were pretty easy. They were colossally easy.
I was trying to be nice.
Yeah, you could not have made them easier. So either blown defense or, to give Nagy a bit of credit, perhaps a good play call, misdirection. I almost was feeling bad for Trubisky that they actually don't trust him enough. And then the irony is he unleashes that 36-yard touchdown, and you're like, what the hell was that? That was an amazing throw, a great catch by Gabriel. So there's a little bit in there. But I think that's what it's always going to be with him. Now, you look at the numbers, and people say, what the hell are these 3 talking about? He's 25 of 31, 231, 3 scores. Guy can run a little bit every once in a while. He does have athletic ability, but it's why I think that's just what Trubisky is going to be. He shot up to the second pick in the draft because he has this athleticism, and I think he impresses people at times. But I was always on the other side of it, saying that he doesn't really have a lot of experience. He played 13 games in college. You don't really know what he is. And this is what he is, I think. I think he's got some real ability there, but consistently he's going to be inaccurate, and he's not going to encourage faith by the coordinaters or the coaches to just open up the entire playbook and let him do it. There'll be flashes, and then the rest of it is like, he's just throwing the ball 4 yards downfield. Doesn't matter. And I think what you said about Nagy is fair. Week 1 was an abomination. The other night, they just right place, right time. Anybody was beating that team with the exception of Miami. Honestly, anybody was beating them. They were so terrible. And I think you're right. Like, there's these choices being made. Taylor Gabriel's getting the ball all the time. And what's Allen Robinson doing? Allen Robinson's really good. So I think you guys are right. It's just getting cute now.
It's a little bit interesting. I want to talk about a guy I don't think any of us are in love with, but when I see him on some waiver wires, I think it's a mistake just based on the statistics. He's only averaging 3.7 yards per carry. That's nothing great by any stretch of the imagination, but Aaron Jones is at 3.8, Chris Carson's at 3.5, Le'Veon Bell's at 2.9, so you get what I'm saying. But I see Peyton Barber on waiver wires. And, Jim, there isn't – if you play in a 12-team league and you have two running backs that you put in your starting roster, that's 24, and you have one guy on the bench, a running back, we're talking 36. There isn't 36 backs that have 44 attempts. And attempts and getting the ball, and in this offense, Peyton Barber's getting the opportunity. He doesn't belong on waiver wires.
Oh, I couldn't disagree with you more. I am not a Peyton Barber fan. He's a pedestrian back at best. To me, he's a total backup. And, he had one good week out of three against the Panthers, who haven't been able to stop anybody at the running back position. The other 2 weeks, he did nothing. And, that's what I'm looking at. This is a guy that's going to struggle each and every week to get you to 10 fantasy points, and he won't do it unless he scores. If he doesn't get that chance to score, then he's going to leave you high and dry, with a ceiling of 8 or 9 points. So he's not somebody I ever want on my fantasy team. I still like Ronald Jones a little bit better, and we've seen Ronald Jones play better in 2 of the 3 games. For some reason, after a good game 1, the coach decided that he had to go to Peyton Barber in week 2, which to me, it just doesn't make any sense. I love this, but, Sigmund Bloom is always bringing up the thought process of we always expect rational coaching. Unfortunately, we never get rational coaching. What we think we see, they always seem to want to go a different way. And I get that in some part because you always want to zig when everybody else is zagging, because that's what Belichick does, and he's done it so well, so often that they keep winning. Other people want to mimic that, but unfortunately, they're just not as smart. And in this case, I just think Ronald Jones is a better back than Peyton Barber. Look, he might not be as good in some aspects, like picking up a blitzer, things like that. We know that. I agree. Yeah. I absolutely agree. Barber is a little better at that, but Barber is not going to win you any games. Ronald Jones has that chance to be that big back who, that big playback for them that Peyton Barber just doesn't have in him.
See, this is interesting, and this is good discussion that most people don't get into. Ronald Jones is averaging 5.3 yards a carry. As Jim said, he has flashes. But I remember the game where Ronald Jones ripped off a nice run, and in the next series he got Jameis Winston sacked by missing a pickup on a blitz. And, Mike, how much goes into reading the coaches, whether they're right or wrong? You got to have the guy on the field to score points.
Yeah, so a couple of things that you guys brought up, which are interesting. One, with the Tampa running back core, I actually looked into their snap counts and everything today through 3 weeks. It's extremely unpredictable, which Jim alluded to. And right now, even Ogunbowale, who's not getting any carries, he's out there a lot on offensive snaps. He's playing all special teams, but he's out there a lot for a guy that they aren't handing the ball to. He's just out there a lot. He's been targeted 9 times through 3 games. Not a lot, obviously, but I just get worried that maybe he gets thrown into the mix at some point. I mostly agree with Jim in that I'd probably rather have Jones, but honestly, I don't think there's a ton of value in any of these guys. Now, they're 8th in the league in rushing yards right now. They've only scored 1 rushing touchdown through 3 games. I think that he's going to keep trying different combinations, and I don't know that any one of them will be valuable. I think your greatest point in terms of Barber is that he's out there on waiver wires and he gets the ball, so why people just don't like him, so they're stashing Justin Jackson, for example, in the hopes that he's going to be the starting running back in L.A. at some point. So I think Barber has value. You can always have him at the end of your bench. Now, Jim's other good point about rational coaching, or the lack thereof, is I read an article earlier today. Pro Football Talk had a explanation of John Harbaugh and him going for 2 several times the other day. Not going for extra points, going for 2, going on 4th down, not running the ball, whatever. A lot of questionable stuff there. And he went through this whole thing about analytics and our analytics guys. And I know the analytics, and this is giving us the best chance to win the game, all of which I agree with. But as part of that rant, he starts talking about how he's a gut guy. I'm like, if you have an analytics department and you're espousing that the analytics prove that it was the right thing to go for 2 in these scenarios to win on the road, then why are you saying you're a gut guy? You shouldn't be. The analytics are there. You just do it.
I watched that game, and I'm saying to myself, the kick is hurt, and they just didn't tell anyone. Because I'd never seen anyone go for 2 right from the start. And I agree. I didn't think it was a bad move against Kansas City. You're going to have to score, right? Yeah, they do. But he does. He gambles it well. But yeah, I mean, own it, Mr. Harbaugh, own it.
Just say, hey, I work with the analytics department, and occasionally there's 50-50 calls, and I'm going to go, and I'm the head coach. But don't say, the analytics guys don't really run it. I go with I'm more of a gut guy. You just sound like a Neanderthal when you say that kind of stuff. There's entire departments of your organization dedicating to figure out what the actual optimal decisions are to be made. You should just adapt to that, like baseball managers.
Okay, but wait, I got to cut you right there. I got to cut you right there because I got to jump into this. Sure, the analytics department is doing what they do, but they're not always right. The numbers don't always work out the way they look at that. We see that each and every Sunday in every game.
I think that's fair. The sample sizes are small. You can't say always. I get that.
So as a head coach, you have to be able to use your gut at the same time. Look, I make a lot of calls each and every week, like we all do, and some of them are based on numbers. Some of them are based on my gut. I've played this game. I've been involved in this game for a long time. And I watch the games. I'm not a big numbers guy. I'm not a big metrics guy, but I watch the games and I know what I'm looking at. And that to me gives me a little bit of an insight to what's going on the field. The numbers are good for some things, but they don't always work. And sometimes even you have to go against the numbers if your gut is saying that it is. So I can see being both. You want to work with the analytics guy, but you can't let them make every single decision.
No. He's going to have to make the 50-50 calls, the 55-45 calls. It's not an overwhelming decision. But I just found it odd for him to say that the analytics tell us that it's the right move and that he's saying, but I really go with my gut. Just say that we've studied it. Like Pat Shurmur stood up there last year in the game when they were down. They scored a touchdown to go down 15, and then they went for 2. And people were questioning it. And Shurmur went on the podium after the game and explained it piece by piece why he went for 2, because it gives us a chance to win the game. We're not trying to tie. And he was right. And he proved other people that were doubting him wrong. So I appreciated that he did that. He actually informed the press corps and people watching that sometimes it may not seem like it, but the analytics are telling me I need to go for 2 when I'm down 15.
I am so tired of Pat Shurmur. I don't even live in New York, so I can't even imagine what you people go through out in New York. If this guy pats himself on the back one more time for Daniel Jones, and weren't we right?
Man,
aren't we all?
The victory lap.
Shut up.
Would you?
You didn't even pick him. I'm sure you would want to back going. This GM's trying to get him fired.
So many victory laps.
Oh, my God. Shut up. I don't want to hear him again.
What was the size of the cigar that Gettleman smoked after the game the other day because the stupid kicker couldn't get it right? Give me a break. It's one game. Great debut. I give him a lot of credit.
I don't have a problem with Gettleman getting excited about it and saying stuff, actually. Pat Shurmur, please stop.
I mean, I have to give him some credit. His quarterback that he's been coaching for 6 months was awesome in his first game.
If he was that good, you should have started him week 1 then.
You're not wrong. I said that they should if that was the case. But
you're supposed, as the head coach, you're supposed to give your team the best chance to win, Jim. Am I wrong? Why would you not play the best player? If he was that good, that great, that you're going to tell everybody how smart you are, why did he play week 1? Your job as the head coach is to give your team the best chance to win.
Oh, I really don't want to get into Shermer. I'm finding more and more each and every week. I don't like this guy. I don't think he's a great coach. I see plays he called, that they go with, and it just makes me crazy sometimes. This guy is supposed to be such a good offensive mind, and man, I'm just not seeing it. And you're right. I mean, look, Daniel Jones played a great game. Definitely better than we expected.
Yeah.
He throws a very nice ball, no doubt. We knew we had the ability to run, so that's a nice add that we didn't have with Eli. Look, he had 2 rushing touchdowns in one game. Eli never had 2 rushing touchdowns in any season. As a matter of fact, he only had 7 his entire career. So definitely a nice edge there.
I would have taken the under on 7, by the way.
Yeah, I hear you. I was kind of surprised too when I actually looked it up. But the bigger problem is there's still things that he needs to work on. He needs to work on his footwork a little bit. He needs to learn how to feel where the pressure is coming from. He had no clue when there were guys around him coming from his blind side at all. And that's a problem because Nate Sauter has not been playing that good at left tackle. He has definitely been the liability of this offensive line so far, and he needs to step it up. I mean, this is a guy that used to be an all-pro with New England. All of a sudden, he can't block anymore. Maybe he's just getting too old and too slow, but he's not getting the job done. So, Daniel Jones is going to need to get the ball out of his hands quicker if he's not going to know where the defenders are coming from. So he needs to do that, and that's going to be the issue going forward. First week, nobody has any real tape on him. Now they do.
I got one thing, guys. I'll tell you what. Dr. Roto back in the day used to have the funeral, like you would bury a player each week. It was like the most obnoxious thing in the world. But I was thinking about it this week as I watched the Atlanta Falcons running back Devonta Freeman play. This isn't the same guy to me. It looks like Marion Baba when it was all over for the Dallas Cowboys, a guy maybe that's taken too many hits. I think the Falcons' offense is good. I wonder where Calvin Ridley is. But when Devonta Freeman gets the ball, I don't see the same guy.
I would have to agree with that. The good news is their passing offense is in sync, and I think they're just going to continue to win games that way. But Jim, would you think that this means that we start to Tony's right. It just doesn't look like the same guy. Do you think we start to infuse more Ito, Smith, and
oh no, please no.
or anybody else into the mix with touches?
I am not an Ito Smith guy. He has yet to show me anything outside of being able to plunge in from the one. Anywhere else on the field, he hasn't shown me anything that makes me think he could be an every down back or even close to it.
I mean, his claim to fame was if the glove don't fit, you must have quit. Wasn't that Ito, Judge Ito?
Yeah, that was Judge Ito. Look, I think right now Freeman is still trying to find his way, as is this entire offense. Really, I mean, they get a lot of garbage time points, but they haven't really put it all together yet to from start to finish in a game where they're hitting on all cylinders. We just haven't seen that yet. And a lot of that, to me, has to do with Dirk Cutter. If you go back and look when Dirk Cutter was there the first time, that's when Matt Ryan was throwing a ton of interceptions. All of a sudden, they go to Steve Sarkisian. He throws 2 last year. That's play calling to me. He's not forcing ball where he doesn't have to. He's creating mismatches, things like that. Now, all of a sudden, they get Cutter back. What does he have? Six interceptions on the season in 3 games.
Dirk Cutter is amazing to me. I don't understand how this guy keeps getting high-profile jobs in the NFL and really never succeeding in any of them.
Just such a bad head coach wherever he's been. But
even at Jacksonville as the offensive coordinator.
At Arizona State. He just wasn't any good. So, obviously I'm a big Matty Ice fan. I'm hoping he turns around. I have him in a few spots as well. But the turnovers are a problem. Remember when we talked just a few weeks ago about that? The odd propensity for Matt Ryan to have bad odd years and good even years. So now, I mean, it's 928 yards and 8 touchdowns through 3 games. You'll take that, but the 6 picks is a killer. And now they miss Keanu Neal again. They're 1-2. But they fought back in that Colts game that could have gotten away from them, and that's a 3-point game with 4 minutes left. They just couldn't get a stop. So I have to give them some credit for hanging in there. Thankfully, they had that comeback against the Eagles, or they'd be an unlikely 0-3. I actually thought they'd make the playoffs, and I'm not feeling too confident about it now, especially with Neal going out, who got a ridiculous penalty, by the way, for throwing his helmet.
Yes,
oh my God!
Tearing his Achilles.
I couldn't believe that.
Kidding me.
If you're the ref, you got to pick up that flag. Like
Absolutely.
This is the crazy. All right, last but not least, you're listening to WTF Fantasy Football. I'm going to ask you a legitimate question no other show is going to have. I'm going to ask both these guys, and then we're going to get out of here. All right, Jalen Ramsey, cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, wants to find a new home. I got to ask you guys a question. If you were a fan of the Atlanta Falcons, pretend you're both Falcons fans for this question. Would you rather be a season ticket holder, go to the game every week and pay $2 for a hot dog, $3 for a slice of pizza, nachos are $3, pretzels are $2, peanuts are $3, a Coke is $2, and a beer is $5? The Falcons have done everything they can to keep concession prices down low, and they're proud of that. But what if they can't sign a $100 million cornerback? Would you rather have the $100 million cornerback, Mike Blewitt, or $2 hot dogs?
I don't think one is necessarily connected to the other. But
in Tony's world, they are.
I'll take the $5 beers. That's a pretty good price.
And actually, the hot dogs have gone down to $1.50 this year.
Yeah, that's right. They lowered. You're 100% right.
The sales are up.
Yeah,
It
but
worked.
see, I'm telling you right now. I think right now that's what's good about the American people. Keep Jalen Ramsey in Jacksonville and give us the $1.50 hot dog, Jim. Nothing better than that.
No, I'm with you there. I saw that little piece they were doing on him, and he was talking about the concession stands and the prices, and he was really happy about it, that he was able to get it that low. I mean, heck, let's face facts. I mean, they still got to make some money out of it, but even at $1.50, you got to love that kind of price if you're an Atlanta fan and like to go to the games.
It's
Give
like
it
a
up for the
Georgia thing.
Falcons.
They keep the prices cheap at the Masters tournament too, where you can get like super cheap sandwiches and beers and stuff like that. So
70% cheaper than the average NFL concession. 70% the Atlanta Falcons.
Wow.
So there you go, Jim. We have another great show. Where can people check you out the rest of the week?
Oh, everywhere, guys. I'm everywhere nowadays. Of course, NEFS, FNTSY, or now Sports Grid Television Network, as Mike will attest to. He's going to be on there shortly. Every Monday through Friday, we have the Fantasy Football Frenzy at 1 p.m. Find us on Zumo TV, channel 719, or on YouTube. Also, every Sunday, I'm on with Joe Pisapia from 9 to 10, who actually joins Mike also on Sundays. For Roto Experts in the morning, of course, we have this podcast. I have my Friday night FF Champs After Dark podcast. I have a new podcast going on Thursdays now, FF Champs Live with Bill Enright. There's all kinds of things going on.
Mike, where can people find you?
Find me on Twitter at Mike Blewitt. I'll be doing in-game live tonight, so whenever you hear this, it probably will have already happened. But reality is I'm on in-game live on the Sports Grid TV network and Fantasy Sports Radio during the week, and on Sunday mornings you can find me on the Sports Grid TV network, available on Zumo, channel 719.
You'll probably be able to find me in the hospital. I broke a truckload this week of toilet paper, and the truck broke down, so I kept the toilet paper, and it's really rough, and it's really hurting my anus, but it's free, and so I'm going to keep using it.
Appreciate your medical use of that term.
Yeah, really.
Jim, that's all I got.
I really don't want to talk about Uranus. Maybe Pluto, but definitely not Uranus.
Pluto's no longer a planet.
Yeah, I know. Well, thanks, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this show. We will talk to you next week. Nobody else is talking about Uranus. Thank you. Have a good night.